This is Press TV's Top 5. Thanks for joining us. The Saudi-backed opposition group which attended Syria peace talks in Geneva has warned that it will not return to the suspended negotiations. The chief of the so-called High Negotiations Committee, Riyad Hijab, says they will resume negotiating peace only if their preconditions are met. Hijab, who arrived in the Swiss city on Wednesday, renewed anti-Damascus rhetoric. He said the opposition will only talk about a ceasefire when there is a transition without Syrian President Bashar al-Assad. Riyadh further urged the international community to put pressure on Damascus and Moscow, which has tipped the balance of war in favor of government forces through its air cover. His comments came after the UN adjourned the talks.
I've therefore taken this decision to bring a temporary pause. Temporary pause. This is not the end and it's not the failure of the talks. Why? They came and they stayed. Not only, but both sides insisted on the fact that they are interested in having the political process started. 3, I've already fixed a date for the next talks, 25th of February.
The UN Special Envoy for Syria, Staffan de Mistura, called the decision in line with demands of Syrians who expected something concrete out of the talks. Meanwhile, the Syrian ambassador to the UN, Bashar al-Jafari, says the government delegation will later announce whether they will be back to the talks. Jafari stressed that Damascus has the final say in this regard. He blamed the suspension of talks on the opposition group, which he said was instructed by Saudi Arabia, Qatar and Turkey to withdraw. On Tuesday, the High Negotiations Committee announced it would not attend a meeting with de Mistura. Well, to discuss that further, I joined Ms. Mimi Al-Laham, who is a Syrian activist and political commentator, who's joining us live now via Skype from Australia. De Mistura calls this a halt, but it certainly seems like a failure, doesn't it?
Well, you know, it's a bit ridiculous. I heard him say it's not a failure because they came and they stayed. Well, they didn't stay. The opposition left after 2 days. So how can you describe it as anything else other than a failure?
Right, and let's talk about the reasons then why exactly the HNC decided to walk away. Is it, as Bashar al-Jafari said, under pressure from the Saudis, Qataris and Turks?
I think whatever the Saudis tell them to do is exactly what they do. They're basically puppets with no power of their own. The reason for them leaving is because of the military situation being so terrible for Al-Qaeda on the ground. And they said themselves they will only return if the military situation improves. So really they only want to negotiate when they have, you know, a strong position. But in fact, this might be the strongest position they're ever going to have because it doesn't seem like Al-Qaeda is going to make a comeback against the Syrian military. And it's interesting as well that the reason that this broke down is because the sieges on the two towns, Zahra and Noble, were broken. So it seems that the Syrian opposition and Saudi Arabia can't come to the negotiating table unless they're holding two towns hostage and starving them. And that is the point on which they want to negotiate. And the media hasn't covered any part of this. The BBC's headline is "Government breaks siege." Government cuts Aleppo rebel supply route instead of government breaks siege on starving towns.
Okay, we'll leave it there at that point, but as always, of course, we do appreciate you putting that all into context for us. That was Ms. Mimi Al-Laham, who was speaking to us live from Australia.